So before you feel like this is a case of deja vu, yes, you have already watched this video, but I recently got a notification that the video was completely gone and deleted off of YouTube. And that means that all the comments, the conversations, the likes, everything was just gone. And that is unfortunate, but I still have the video, so I made the necessary edits that I think will not get the video taken down again. And hopefully this video should stay up this time, because this is the second time that the video has been flagged or received some kind of strike or something. But I've watched it multiple times and hopefully it should be good this time. If you've already watched it, maybe you can watch it again, leave a like, leave a comment. That would be great for the algorithm. And if you haven't watched it, then that's great because this is a new video for you to watch and hopefully you'll enjoy it. But I wanted to give a PSA just in case you were confused. But I won't talk any longer and let's just get right into the video.
I have an unexplainable hatred towards Sydney Sweeney and I can't figure it out.
Hello, welcome back to my channel. Sydney Sweeney is a 27-year-old actress from Washington and is best known for her roles in White Lotus and Euphoria. At just 12 years old, Sydney's passion for acting took off when an indie film was shooting in her hometown. To convince her parents to let her audition, she came up with an incredibly detailed 5-year business plan, and not long after that, she landed small roles in shows like Grey's Anatomy, Criminal Minds, and Victorious. With a growing momentum in her career, the family eventually made the move to Los Angeles to support her growing acting career. Sydney is considered a rising star in Hollywood, but I've noticed that her career is at a very pivotal point in terms of public perception. And in this video, I want to look at her career as someone who is both objectified for her looks, yet undermined for her talent. So if you're interested in a topic like this, and without talking too much, then let's get right into it. It's no secret that women can face objectification no matter how modestly they dress, what role they play, or how serious their acting is. Take Sharon Stone's role in Basic Instinct. It shows how objectification can blur the lines between an actress's character and her identity in real life. Catherine wasn't just a seductress, she was sharp, manipulative, and dangerous. But because of many scenes where the camera lingered on her body and her other intimate moments, it shifted a lot of the focus to her looks. And that iconic interrogation scene where she crosses her leg made her a cultural symbol of seduction, but it also ended up overshadowing her skills as an actress. In her memoir, she reflects on her superstar career, which was dependent on her physical appearance and her ability to be attractive enough. She says, and I quote, "My work reflects the time when I did have the opportunity to collaborate with great directors, and I sat at their feet, learning everything I could for the times ahead. For I was not the chosen one, not the golden girl, just the sex symbol who could sometimes get the key part if she also happened to be sexy." Something really important that she mentions is that she had to either play ball or get off the field, which implies that she either had to accept her typecasting in Hollywood and be satisfied with that, or get out of the industry entirely. And although it's simply coincidental, Sydney Sweeney makes a similar statement about her career in an interview with Variety. The interviewer poses a question: "Do you think that a man with your resume would get more recognition?" And she says that because there are more actresses than actors, there's more competition for women, which means that it's easier for a man to land a successful project and immediately be offered any projects that he wants afterwards. But for her, she's still getting questioned about her acting abilities, even after being in major projects like Euphoria, Sharp Objects, and The Handmaid's Tale. And despite this success, she's still working hard to prove that she can deliver in a film with a renowned director, which will hopefully earn her recognition. What I find so interesting are the parallels between what both of them have said, which shows just how much Hollywood and the general public have not evolved in the past 30 years. And that lack of evolution has an impact on actresses like Sydney Sweeney. Cassie is one of the most complex and controversial characters in Euphoria, primarily because of the way she navigates romantic relationships and her struggles with self-worth. At her core, Cassie just wants love and validation, yet her choices often reflect desperation, which causes her to hurt herself and those she's closest to. A large part of Cassie's storyline revolves around her body and her good looks, and because of that, a lot of her scenes involve nudity or her engaging in explicit activities. But these scenes became so frequent in the show that Sydney herself admitted that there were times when it felt excessive or unnecessary.
Let's talk about how whenever you see this woman, she is naked or crying. Whenever I see nudity in a show, I ask myself if it's necessary and what the intention is. And I'm going to tell you this. It is 100% by design that the most stereotypically attractive, blonde, big woman is the one who is naked in this show about teenagers all of the time. Apparently, Sydney Sweeney asked for some of the unnecessary nude scenes to be taken out, which kind of horrifies me because that means there was a lot more nudity intended to be in the show. And what they came up with was what they considered cutting down. And of course, a lot of those shots, she's naked and crying. And it's just very much giving in to like this stereotypically beautifully blonde who is just so sad and pathetic and only wants attention from guys. Which is why I don't think Sam Levinson really deserves a lot of the credit he gets for making Euphoria this cool, diverse show, when really he keeps leaning back to tropes we've seen since the beginning of time.
In an interview with Variety, she reflected on the strange disconnect between her real-life self and her characters. These characters are for everybody, but then me, as Sydney, is not for me anymore. Instead of being viewed as an actress playing a part, she's increasingly seen as a symbol of male desire. A label that can come with serious career consequences because actresses branded as sex symbols often struggle to connect with female audiences. They are seen as unrelatable or as competition for male attention and validation. So while female fans may enjoy their performances, they're less likely to develop the loyalty needed for a long-lasting career. This can be similar to how audiences react to villains in movies. They might hate the character so much that they project that dislike onto the real actor. And so in the case of the sex symbol, if a woman plays a character that men fantasize about or begin to compare other women to, or even worse, she plays a character that is a cheater or a mistress, female audiences might direct their frustration at her rather than the men who idealize her character on screen or who she is in real life.
I have an unexplainable hatred towards Sydney Sweeney, and I can't figure it out. Like, I thought, I'm a hater, right? Okay, she's beautiful, she's funny, she's talented, she's got a slamming bod, she's wealthy, like she's a movie star, you know? Like, I'm envious, I'm being a hater because I'm jealous. But then I see somebody like Sabrina Carpenter, who is Sydney Sweeney in a different font. Blonde, beautiful, wealthy, talented, famous. But I don't feel the same way about Sabrina Carpenter. Like, when I see Sabrina Carpenter, I think about those, like, things that men used to say where they're like, I would drag my ass through a million miles of broken glass just to hear her fart into a walkie-talkie. Like, I'm obsessed with Sabrina Carpenter. I would do anything to breathe the same air supply as her. But yet I hate Sydney Sweeney with like a livid passion and like feel rage when I see her face. And I did a deep dive on her Instagram, on Sydney Sweeney's Instagram, trying to figure out why I hate her so much because I can't figure it out. It doesn't make sense to me. Am I in love with her? I don't know.
We listen and we don't judge.
So in Sydney's case, even when she's in a rom-com, which is primarily a genre that targets women, a lot of women made comments about how they're not going to see it with their boyfriends or husbands because of Sydney's starring role and just how hot she is.
And what did you think of Sydney Sweeney?
I thought that her character was not so appealing and that it was as if her were more of a character than her person was.
Yeah.
They were very prominently displayed and featured.
Aw, your boyfriend has a crush on Sydney Sweeney? You should break up with him so he can go date her. Oh, he doesn't have a chance with her. Oh, that's not... Okay, he doesn't have a chance with her, but he's obsessing over her, even though he has a real-life relationship with you. What a weirdo that he's obsessing over women that he has no chance with at the expense of his relationship with you. You should break up. Normalize not staying with men that are oohing and awing over other women. Normalize that.
Tell me why the first thing my boyfriend says when Sydney Sweeney comes on screen, that's a really cool outfit. I'm like, that Sydney Sweeney's wearing? He's like, yeah. I'm like, okay, crazy thing for you to say to me right now after the discourse about you even coming with me to this theater. I'm like, she's literally wearing a white button-up and jeans. Like, I quite literally wear a white button-up and jeans all the time. What are you saying, sir? And so I really had to, like, sit back and channel my inner cool girl and, like, not swing at him in the face in that moment. But yeah, aside from that, I loved the movie. And yeah, I almost broke up with my boyfriend. This is a joke, by the way. Please.
Sydney has spoken out about the weird way in which people talk about her body, something that's been happening since the start of her career and even before she was famous.
It was a storyline of what is happening in Cassie, the sexualization that's happening in Cassie because of her nude photos that got leaked and just the perception of others on her because she has boobs. And then I see that happening to me in real life, even though everyone watched Euphoria. I go, well, did you not
Did you miss the point?
Did you miss the... Exactly, yeah.
That must be really frustrating.
Exactly.
This ongoing issue of over-sexualization and dehumanization plays directly into the conversation around her recent commercials, which are full of sensual innuendos. But before jumping into these reactions, let's talk about her role in these ads to provide more context. But if you do want to watch the full thing, make sure to watch it quickly, emphasis on quickly, and come right back. So in the first commercial, she's portrayed as a genie, magically replacing old soaps with the Dr. Squash product. She begins the video by saying, "Let's face it, guys only want one thing." The innuendo is that guys only want to sleep with her. And then at the very end of the video, she says, "For men who prefer natural." And this implies that she represents a naturally endowed woman as compared to those who are plastic or fake. But most people didn't care too much about this particular commercial. It was pretty tame, but it was the second commercial with Sydney in a bathtub that had people talking. So the first thing that she says at the beginning of the video is, "Hello, you dirty little boys. Are you interested in my body? Wash." The overall tone and setting are intimate, and she continues by saying, "This product is not for little boys, but for men," before encouraging the viewers to go and buy the product so they can quit being a dirty little boy. And that comes to the end of my very bad Sydney Sweeney impression. The reactions to these commercials were split. One side sees this as a power move. If Sydney knows that she's objectified and men will continue to focus on her body, why not lean into it and profit from the narrative herself?
That was an insane ad. Whoever is on the marketing team at Dr. Squatch, incredible.
From this perspective, it's a savvy way to take control of how she's perceived and monetize what people already obsess over. And the other side feels like this commercial is dehumanizing, as she's playing into the hands of people that want to objectify her and her image. And I can understand why people feel that way, because when I came across an article that was just announcing that she was the face of the brand, and there were nearly 300 comments, and this is not even an exaggeration, but at least 99.9% of them were talking about her chest. No one even talked about the quality of the commercial or the product.
So on the one hand, when discussing how the public responds to her body, she seems to express dismay about being overly sexualized. In this Elle magazine interview, for example, she explicitly expresses disappointment about what she calls the hypersexualization of her figure. So she's using the rhetoric of pop feminism, and people like me who respond to that kind of thing think, oh my gosh, this is terrible. No one should be made to feel that way just because they look a certain way. But then she'll do commercials like, and then with her SNL performance, Bowen Yang reported that she was begging them to make jokes about her body. I don't know if I'm being too cynical here, but I've noticed this trend with celebrity women where they use and sometimes weaponize the language of social justice to give themselves some edge, but then encourage and support the very thing they claim to be dismayed by. And I know you guys are going to say, well, that's like saying a girl shouldn't wear a short skirt if she doesn't want attention. Now, in response to that, I would say I think there's a difference between, say, wearing a short skirt and she says she has no control. Women are less physically powerful than men, yes, but we're not children. We do have agency. Let's own and stand in our choices.
But depending on who you ask, this commercial is either empowering, dehumanizing, or just irrelevant. But it still begs the question of why would Sydney take on a campaign that is bound to stir controversy? especially when you compare the type of commercials that other people are doing who are at her same level or similar level of celebrity. If she had done a collaboration with Bath & Body Works or even Crumble Cookie like Olivia Rodrigo, it would be seen as more acceptable. Well, according to Sydney herself, acting doesn't pay what it used to. So much so that she can't afford to take 6 months off from work because of her financial obligations. That includes paying for an agent, a manager, a lawyer, hair, makeup, security, and a whole lot more. And because of how expensive it is to live in Hollywood, that is probably why the Dr. Squash campaign is just one of many. It's even become a running joke online that Sydney says yes to almost every brand deal that she's offered. There's Bai, a flavored water brand, Ford, a car brand, Miu Miu, which is luxury fashion, Hey Dude, a footwear brand, Parade, lingerie, Laneige, Korean skincare, Cotton On, athleisure wear, Armani Beauty, and Samsung. There's also this luxury hair care brand, but I'm not even going to attempt to mispronounce its name. So overall, if I had to guess why she did this commercial, it's likely because she relies on brand deals and work outside of acting to support her lifestyle. And for a brand like Dr. Squash, which markets its products to men, it makes sense that they would want her to play into the male gaze, something that she already fits into and something that their target demographic of men would want to see. I also want to add that the use of women's bodies to sell products is not something new. The only thing that's new or different is that people have a different understanding of the media and their relationship to it. In the decades prior, if you were to see a woman half naked and her only job in the commercial is to use her body to sell the burger, even if you thought it was objectifying, you might not have had the language to call it as such. But now, people have the language and the understanding to call out something that they feel is objectifying or degrading to women. And social media also helps amplify those voices. So again, Sydney is not doing anything that is new or different, but the way in which people process, understand, and have conversations about topics like this has definitely evolved. This now brings us to the concept of the male and female gaze in visual media. Okay, so editor me here, I can't show a lot of examples of the male gaze in its true form because it's mostly just half naked or fully naked women, and I can't show that. But I will be able to show some parts of Lolita, and it's still gonna have to be slightly obstructed simply because of copyright. And the reason why I'm using Lolita is it's the worst parts of the male gaze because this involves a child. And it's problematic because even when it's talking about a sensitive subject, which is a child being abused by a parental figure, it still can't refrain itself from recording her and shooting her from angles that are quite frankly inappropriate when you look at her age and the situation. In my opinion, if this was shot from the female gaze, they wouldn't have positioned or dressed her in the way that she is in the movie. They would have made him older, creepier, and uglier. And the movie wouldn't try to make Lolita look attractive in any kind of way, because again, she is a child. But yeah, I wanted to add that before we got into the male gaze. So now let's get back to the video. The male gaze often objectifies women by focusing on their bodies and physical appearance. A clear example is Harley Quinn in the first Suicide Squad movie. There's a scene of her changing clothes in front of a group of men. The camera lingers on her body as the male characters stare, reinforcing the male gaze because it is a scene that is clearly trying to pander to the men watching. And her overly revealing outfit in the film sharply contrasts with her look in Birds of Prey and the second Suicide Squad movie, where her costumes are less about how hot she can look and is more about practicality and functionality. If you're looking for a simple way to really understand the male gaze in media, The 7 Deadly Sins is a great case study in the worst way possible. It's available on Netflix, and the show is filled with blatant objectification of its female characters. From the way the women are drawn and dressed, to the groping scenes, and how the male characters interact with them, it's all designed to cater to a male viewer's perspective. The camera angles and the way the women are shot throughout the series only reinforces this focus, and it reduces the female characters to mere objects of desire. Between the two gazes, Sydney Sweeney would be someone that falls into the male gaze, and thus having a predominantly male fan base, something that she even joked about when she was on SNL. But there is somewhat of a double-edged sword to that. People don't really want to hear you speak or play roles where your body isn't the main focus.
Word just got out that Sydney Sweeney will not stop doing nude scenes in Hollywood. I just want to say, I will be there no matter what. Word of my desk, bro. Hey, Sydney Sweeney, I like that you know what the public wants. I need that, I want that, and I need that. You feel me? I'm just saying, I will be at every single one of them showings, bro. Sydney Sweeney in the movie, oh, she doing a nude scene? I'm there. I'm not going for none of the shenanigans, none of the extracurriculars. I'm there.
This makes it harder for actresses like Sydney to break out of that mold and be appreciated for her talent or her acting range. On the other hand, the female gaze is a storytelling approach that portrays women as full, complex individuals. It emphasizes emotional depth, connection, and personal agency. It focuses on the character's experience and emotions rather than simply objectifying them or reducing them to their physical body parts. Examples include Little Women, Insecure, and Pride and Prejudice. And when it comes to the female gaze, romance and the way in which intimacy is handled is something that sets it apart from the male gaze. For instance, there's this scene in Pride and Prejudice where Mr. Darcy and Elizabeth touch hands for the first time. And as he's walking away, he lightly flexes his hand. And the reason for including this scene in the first place is to highlight the tension between Mr. Darcy and Elizabeth.
We know from the text and from other adaptations like the BBC series that Darcy is described as and often portrayed as cold, forbidding, and domineering. That's why this choice in the movie, the physical manifestation of tension and anxiety about his attraction, is so good. By focusing on Darcy's internal struggles and showing physical manifestations of them, we empathize with him more. So often in film, show, whatever, men's attraction is shown in the form of conquest and in this epic frame. So to be shown something private and quiet and something that honestly we weren't supposed to see, something soft, something that shows vulnerability and anxiousness in the pursuit of love, also known as something feminine, yin in nature, it leaves us speechless.
Beautiful women being typecast or treated as ornamental in film and TV is nothing new. It's been a pattern since the earliest days of Hollywood, and no one embodies this more than Marilyn Monroe. Marilyn was the original blonde bombshell who perfectly fit into the male gaze, and her career reflected that. Many of her movie roles like Gentlemen Prefer Blondes and The 7-Year Hitch capitalized on her beauty and sensual appeal rather than her range as an actress. She also often played the dumb blonde stereotype, a persona that became almost inseparable from her real-life identity. Unlike today, when actresses have more opportunities to produce and control their own projects, Marilyn didn't have the same power to break away from that image. The industry of her time didn't allow her to easily transition into more serious or complex roles, which left her heavily typecast. Marilyn's legacy remains complicated. She was celebrated for her beauty, but also heavily objectified, both during her life and after her death. This was painfully evident with the release of Blonde in 2022, starring Ana de Armas, which was heavily criticized for reducing Marilyn to only her tragedies and making her a vessel of erotic fantasies rather than honoring her talent and showcasing the complexities of her life. Even in death, Marilyn was exploited. Men like Hugh Hefner, who made fortunes off of the objectification of women, went so far as to arrange to be buried next to her. A very disturbing choice given Marilyn's struggles with exploitation throughout her career. A modern example of a woman who couldn't escape the pitfalls of typecasting and industry objectification is Megan Fox. Her breakout moment came in the Transformers franchise, where her infamous scene leaning over a car hood in a cropped tank top solidified her as the ultimate hot girl. And although that role took her to new heights of fame, it also locked her into an image that she couldn't easily escape. Megan felt she was typecasted in nearly every project that she worked on, and things hit a breaking point around the release of Jennifer's Body. Shortly before the film's debut, Megan gave an interview where she compared Michael Bay to Hitler, as well as describing him as a nightmare to work with. The backlash to her comments were fast. he fired her from the third Transformers film, and along with some members of the crew, they published an open letter on his website calling her things like classless, dumb as a rock, and even comparing her to an adult film actress. The public was against Megan because she was a new actress and Michael Bay was an established director. So when Jennifer's Body was coming out, a film that had the potential to shift the narrative, it focused too heavily on Megan's looks and her appeal, framing it as cheap and exploitative, which was really bad timing because that was the peak of Megan's poor public image in the media. As a result, the movie was dismissed, which overshadowed its deeper feminist themes, which is unfortunate because it is now a movie that is seen as a cult classic and praised for those same themes. When talking about this particular time in her life, Megan says that the failure of the movie, as well as years of constant objectification, pushed her to take a step back from Hollywood entirely. She described having a psychological breakdown, as well as avoiding the public out of fear of judgment and ridicule. Megan has also spoken about feeling excluded, not just by Hollywood, but also by feminists and women in general.
I was sort of speaking out against some of the abusive, misogynistic, patriarchal things that were going on in Hollywood back in 2008 and 2009, and I actually got ridiculed for doing it. I didn't feel like I was accepted by much of the feminist community. I just didn't think that I was a very sympathetic victim, and so I didn't want to speak out because I didn't feel like it would be received in a positive way, and I still don't think it would be.
The last person I want to mention is Margot Robbie because her story turned out differently, and she is often mentioned in discussions about the right way to break out of the bombshell stereotype. Back in 2016, Margot, who was just 25, talked about her growing career and her intention to avoid the pitfalls of playing only hot characters. I want to keep looking for roles where the main interest will be in the character and her importance in driving the story forward, rather than her relationship with a male character. And with the determination to avoid getting stuck in that image, she started taking on a diverse range of roles. She also made a bold move by starting her own production company, Lucky Chap Entertainment, with the goal of creating more female-led stories. Her company has been behind a number of critically acclaimed and female-focused projects. One of my personal favorites, I, Tonya, Saltburn, Barbie, Promising Young Woman, and the Netflix show Made. Her work as a producer, alongside her acting, has played a significant role in changing how she's perceived. She's no longer just another pretty face in Hollywood, but a powerhouse who is driving change in the industry. Sydney Sweeney seems to be following the path of Margot Robbie, who transitioned from being seen as just another attractive woman on screen to a serious movie star. Like Margot, Sydney has also taken charge of her career by starting her own production company and using it to diversify her roles. She's already had a hand in producing projects like Anyone But You and Immaculate, and soon she'll star as real-life boxer Chrissy Martin in an upcoming biopic. It's clear that she's following the examples set by the women who came before her, not only the women who were stuck in their typecast, but women who also managed to break free from being boxed into a singular type of role, the bombshell. It's quite unfortunate that actresses often have to create their own movies and opportunities in order to be taken seriously, but it's also necessary and empowering for women to have a hand in the creation of media so they can tell their stories from not only in front of the camera, but behind the camera. And before I share my final thoughts, I want to acknowledge that I'm aware that Sydney Sweeney is in a very privileged position in Hollywood. She has her own production company, she fits into the conventional beauty standards, and she also benefits from white privilege. So I'm not suggesting that she's been dealt a bad hand or is some kind of unfortunate victim. I found this topic interesting because when I saw that she would be playing Chrissy Martin, and for the role she would have to quote-unquote uglify herself, it struck me that there's this unspoken rite of passage for women who are considered bombshells. It's almost like, in order for them to be taken seriously and to an extent connect with a broader female fan base, they often have to shed their previous image, which aligns with the male gaze. More specifically, they can't look like they were written by a man. I also recognize that even though a lot of women might not like her now, this could change after her new movie and maybe a new rebrand. However, it's also possible that despite her efforts, she might never fully be seen as for the girls. And just because this shift worked for someone like Margot Robbie, it doesn't guarantee that it will also work for Sydney Sweeney. Sydney Sweeney's physical appearance, which is of no fault of her own, has become a topic of discussion, which is not unusual because that is the reality of women all over the world, whether they're famous or just regular women. But in regards to Sydney, I feel like she began to speak more about her over-sexualization in the media after her breakout role in Euphoria. And it's not just because Euphoria was so popular and it made her more famous, it's also because of the nudity. Sydney herself has said that she's still going to continue to perform nude scenes if it's required of her in a movie. And she also understands that it's just part of her job as an actress. So I want to move away from talking about Sydney specifically and move towards the larger conversation about nudity on screen and how it affects women. If you were to ask a group of people if they think nudity on screen is necessary, you would have different opinions because it's a matter of personal preference. But personally, I don't really think it adds anything to the story because you can still convey intimacy or moments of people changing clothes without actually having to show body parts. But whether or not you or I or anyone thinks that it's necessary or unnecessary to have in a movie or a TV show, these opinions would be coming from the perspective of people watching. And we as viewers oftentimes don't think about what it's like to be the person who has to go nude in front of an entire crew and then being broadcast in the homes of millions and millions of people. Emilia Clarke has spoken about the pressure that she felt to do nude scenes in the earlier seasons of Game of Thrones. And the only reason she went along with it is because she had just finished drama school and she didn't have a lot of experience acting on a real set. And she also didn't want to let this opportunity go just because she didn't want to do nudity. She also spoke about how her hard work as an actress was often overshadowed by the nudity on the show. She even had to turn down roles like 50 Shades of Grey to avoid being typecast. Yet the conversation still often circles back to those early scenes. And then you have someone like Megan Fox who has never done any nude scenes. And she told the Mirror that the reason why she doesn't do any is because there are some good projects that I've read with very talented people and talented directors. But the things that the women are required to do in the movie are things that I can't have my sons ever know or see. She explained that she was offered to play a prostitute on HBO, but turned it down because of the graphic, intimate scenes, saying, "Those are things that are degrading to the woman who is playing the character." Which comes back to my point of, it doesn't matter if you're playing a character because you are still a real person, and people will only see you and not the character you're playing on TV or in a movie. In my opinion, without strong industry connections, aka being a nepo baby or coming from extreme wealth, people can often be pressured into decisions that might not align with their true values or desires. And it's also possible that someone may be okay with doing nudity, but not so early in their careers. Maybe they want to do it after 10 or 15 years when they have more experience and they're more comfortable being on set. And this isn't just about age. Being poor in Hollywood makes it difficult to afford the luxury of saying no. And any decision involving something as intimate and permanent as nudity on screen should come from a place of genuine consent and empowerment, and not from a place of desperation. And with that being said, this does bring me to the end of my video. These are just my thoughts, and I would love to know yours down in the comment section below. If you made it this far into this very, very long video, thank you so much for watching. Remember to hit the like button, it really helps with the algorithm, and if you enjoyed this one, then kindly check out some of my other videos, and subscribe for more content on the way. Again, thank you so much for watching, and hopefully I'll catch you in my next video.